eModels.co.uk. Make something awesome.
Oh, that's not a good sound. Hi everyone, this is Ant from bashing. What? Yes, this is Ant from eModels, and welcome to my first video for the lovely chaps at eModels.co.uk. So yeah, a little about myself first, I guess. So I am a born-again model maker. So when the D'Agostini studio scale Millennium Falcon came out, I saw that as like an in back into a hobby that I loved as a kid, but could never get the most out of because I didn't have the knowledge, I didn't have the tools all the time really. So yeah, in this day and age, obviously there's a lot more help out there from people like eModels. So I started my own channel, bashing kits, and I've been doing that for about just over a year. It would have been like June 2016 that I started my channel. And yeah, so I've been plugging away, doing a bit here and there when I can, and to get to this point. So it's a huge honour, and I'm massively grateful to be asked to be a part of this. So let me show you a couple of my kits that I've done in case you've never seen any of my work. And yeah, still waiting on the stickers. So yeah. I got the mug though, so you know, priorities. There is a problem with this mug though. Obviously, it's not filled with a lovely hot drink. You're going to notice a theme here if you're not familiar with my work. So let's bring in one of my later models. So this is a 1144 X-Wing fighter from Star Wars, and I'm quite good at small detail, I think, I'm told. It's not so much the detail I'm trying to capture, it's just the overall style for the scale, so it fits, so it looks right, because it's easy to do too much on something so small that you end up kind of spoiling the effect. So yeah, so I've had a lot of practice on 1144 kits. The first, and probably one of my favourites, was this whole thing. So I did a very long-winded video build series on this, and yeah, there's all manner of techniques on this, but I tend to black base anything Star Wars because that's what they did. They didn't bother with pre-shading panel lines and things like that. But this has got a lighting kit in it as well, so it's such a fantastic little kit. It just looks awesome, and you know, the paint job just helps that. It doesn't. You've still got, you know, great proportions. If you've not tried any of these Bandai Star Wars kits, I really do recommend them, especially if you're like me and of a certain age. All you remember with the only thing you'll remember is trying to make something good out of the old MPC offerings, and yeah, failing miserably most of the time. So this year I've done Slave 1, which is an exercise in chipping and masking fluid. And as you can see, I also tend to drop a lot of stuff and quite clumsy. So this has also got the lighting kit in, which isn't currently wired up. It's just a wire there ready to be connected to the power supply. But that's one of my more recent builds that I did for YouTube. And just to prove, I do other stuff too. I've got, well, obviously you've probably recognised this, Thunderbird 1. This is the Aoshima 1144 kit. So there's about like 4 or 5 pieces to it, but it's still great. And I love Thunderbirds, especially Thunderbird 1. So yeah, that's come out pretty well. I didn't film that one though, to be honest. It was just a quick fun build. This, I'm still not finished it, but it's a 172, what is it? It's from Space Battleship Yamato 2199, and it's one of the Falcons, I think, if I remember. But hopefully you can pick out some of the work I did on the paint job there to try and add some depth. So there was a lot of pre-shading and post-shading on that one. And it's just weathering I haven't done on that yet. I used the buffable metal colours from Mr. Hobby on anything metallic, which was, I mean, it's a great effect, but it meant a lot of careful masking afterwards to not ruin it with other varnishes and whatnot. And I've even got a couple of these things. So this is 1/100 scale, so it doesn't really fit in with the others, and it's got this weird plastic kind of tubing that you put over the joints. I'm not a big fan of it, so I'm probably going to take it all apart, take that stuff off, and then varnish and decal and weather it. This is the full armour thing, so I've got like another box full of accessories and lots more shields. So not much to show on that one, apart from the fact I've built a Gundam. So, what am I building for eModels? This is what I'm building for eModels. Now, you can see it's the orbiter from the space shuttle, and let me just zoom out a little bit. You can see it's the Dragon version. It's 1/144, so perfect scale for me. It will be a bit bigger than X-Wings and things like that, because obviously it's a lot bigger craft in reality. Now, there are Revel alternatives, but I'd seen, quite frankly, some horror shows of those in terms of the fit of the parts. So I figured Dragon couldn't possibly be any worse, but I don't really have any experience with Dragon kits either, so this will be a voyage into the unknown for me as well, which is kind of apt because it's the final frontier and all that. See what I did there? Yeah, sorry, I'll carry on. So yeah, so we've got the space shuttle, apparently it's called, with the cargo bay and satellite. Let's have a look around the box. Zoom out. I can't zoom out any further. So we've got some artwork there, some stuff in languages, and then on this side we have it's rendered with authentic details. The cargo bay doors can be assembled open or closed. We have a separate satellite thing. The cockpit nose made from a clear plastic part to show off interior. The full cockpit interior detail visible inside space shuttle, which is kind of a cool idea, but in reality that's going to look awful. Imagine spending all that time painting the rest of the kit to have like a see-through nose section. Yeah, that looks silly. So what I might try and do is just see if it's removable and then paint it up as normal. So if I do want to show off the tiny detail in the cockpit, we might be able to do it that way. If not, it'll just be through the windows like every other craft. But we'll see we'll see how much we can see. More pictures on the rear. And yeah, it looks nice. There's lots of details crammed into it. I don't think it comes with a stand, so I might have to either make one or put it on its landing gear. But basically, I kind of love that shot with the gear down coming into land. So I might just try and do something like that. Although, ironically, they don't actually give you the decals for the Atlantis I discovered. So, yes, let's have a look inside the box. Here's the first bag of sprues, and I'm having to be careful because there are some pieces have gotten loose. There's one. I think that's it. So, what have we got? Okay, so there's a lot of scratches on there from the parts in the bag rubbing against each other, I guess. I'm looking for excess flash, and there's a lot on the runners, but it doesn't appear to be too much on the parts themselves. Well, we've got some around here, that doesn't look very good. On this bit here, although it's easily cleaned up. Now I'm hoping, because this is all quite one big simple shape, it should be quite easy to put it all together and deal with any issues. So what have we got? We've got the bottom of the hull, we've got the bottom of the nose. It looks like we've got working flaps, or at least positionable flaps, rather than having to have them fixed. So that's nice. And gear bay doors, that kind of thing. They have given us, I'm going to start that again, like ribbing, which I'm not sure why, because you're going to cover it up with the top surface of the wing, aren't you? This is the second bag of sprues, and more of the same. So this looks like satellite parts, bulkheads. Not sure what that is, part of the satellite? Not sure. We got the cargo doors. And again, it all looks fairly clean. Okay, so we've got the rear bulkhead for the engine block. Floor of the cockpit, maybe. The front RCS assembly, or part of it. Oh, this more of the cockpit. And there is some raised surface detail on there. Just here, let me zoom in on that. Which can cause problems if they supply decals. Bandai do that as well. They give you all the raised surface detail and then expect you somehow to put a sticker or a decal over it. So I'm not sure about the decals yet, I haven't got that far. All I know is I looked for an Atlantis and didn't see one. So I have to see what they have in mind for that area. Okay, here's the next sprue, and it looks like more exterior hull pieces, and it looks like a second set of doors. So maybe, did they have like two skins, an inner skin and an outer skin, and the inner skin was in sections? I can't remember, but I'm sure we will find out. A little bit of damage there. Is that damaged plastic below? Hope not, but we'll find out. Apologies, this is all white as well, so you're probably not seeing an awful lot. There is recessed panel lines, which is nice. See on that door there? Recessed, not raised, so win. And then finally we have a sprue of clear parts. Now there's the cockpit piece that they mentioned on the box. Can you imagine leaving that whole thing clear? That would look not great. So a lot of windows to mask as well. And now you can see why they put the ribbing inside the wings, because they've given you a clear top surface. So I guess they want you to be able to have like a cutaway kind of effect. Because you've got a same on the vertical fin. You've got a clear side and a hollow side and a rib side, I guess. I'm not sure where those parts go. So I'm going to be very careful with this. Put it back in its bag to try and... Well, actually, I'm not. All I'm worried about are the windows, because I'm not going to leave all that clear. Or perhaps I should. Perhaps I should do it as like a cutaway thing. It's not what I envisioned. The original plan was to do a Moonraker shuttle, but I can't get hold of any Moonraker decals without paying a lot of money. And then when the box came and I saw that picture, I thought, nah, that looks great, just do that. Okay, we'll come to the instructions in a sec. Let's have a quick look at the decals. Now, immediately, I'm encouraged because look. Printed by Cartograph. So, that's a good sign. And as you can see, they've included lots of decals for the tiling, but there's clearly not enough to cover the whole of the lower surface. And you can do it as a discovery or the discovery. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame because it's Cartograph, but there's not an awful lot of decals. Now, there aren't any interior decals, so that's not a problem. I'm going to have to paint the details instead, yay. So yeah, I can't recall using Cartograph before, so that'll be fun, because you don't hear bad things about them. Right, so finally the instructions. So this is an awkward shape for my aspect ratio. Yeah, that's not ideal. So there's a picture at the top, but well, we'll not worry about that. So we've got a list of all the parts. Now there are some parts that aren't to be used. Well, it's not a lot to these instructions. So as you can see on the instructions, the colour guide refers to Mr. Hobby Aqueous, which is the water-based acrylic range from Mr. Hobby. I can't get those easily. I'm pretty sure eModels can get them. So I'll probably just use what I've got rather than making eModels send me a load of colours. I mean, I've got white, I've got silver, I've got flat black, I've got grey. Plus, I'm going to probably go with my own, based off reference pictures. So I'm not going to be too worried about their colour guide. There's our clear section for the tail fin. And then, yeah, quite a lot of detail you build up there. So this is the section that's below the cockpit, which I don't have much... Space Camp springs to mind. Remember when they're all kind of crawling around and there's a kind of 2 decks? So maybe I'll have to dig out some pictures from Space Camp to see how all that looks. Right, so the plan. The first thing to do is just cut up lots of parts and try and make some sub-assemblies ready for priming. The outside, I'll probably prime the whole thing black, and then start lightening, obviously, the black bit, which won't be black. You've got decal. I'm not sure if I'm going to use the decals, but you've got obviously all the tile detail. But I think you might have to use, because there's no details on the model kit itself. Nothing I can use on the plastic. So they've gone to all the trouble of giving you these inner wing details, which, it's just lots of ribbing. I mean, I don't know how interesting that would be for someone. Yet on the bottom, where there should be lots of heat-proof tiles that tend to fall off, it's completely flat, which I guess is why they've provided the decals. So I'm going to have to use the decals, I think. But they're Cartograph, so it shouldn't be a problem. It's just would have been nice to have the detail on the bottom. Please don't tell me that Revell did the detail on the bottom. That would that would be karma, I guess. I'm waffling about Revell. That's never a good thing. So yeah, to be fair, that could have been better, but I'll see what we can do with it. So maybe landing gear down might be an option. That way you won't see the bottom, huh? Excellent thinking. No, I like the front pose, so I might, the box pose, so I might try and think of a way of having it coming in like that, flaps down, gear down, but on a stand, so you do get to see what's going on. And I'm pointing to something over there that you can't see, so I'll point again to this here. So this pose on a stand, gear down, flaps down, cargo bay doors open. Right, so I've cut off all the parts I need for these first sections. So obviously we've got the main kind of cargo hold, which then sits on top of the wings. So here are all my pieces, and as you can see, I've cut, but I've left plenty of nub, because if I cut too close I might damage the plastic itself, so it's always best to your initial cut from the sprue, make it, you know, a little ways off the kit itself. You can always go in with a pair of cutters afterwards, because there's not as much pressure on the plastic. You can get a bit closer, make your sanding and cleaning up a little easier. So I'm going to crack on with them now, using my cutters, a sharp blade and some sanding sticks. Okay, so that's that section all cleaned up, and then I've just dry fitted it just to see how it all looks, how it all goes together, and it's actually not too bad. The seams are pretty good. Obviously I won't know properly until these ends are like glued in position. They tend to pop open like that, but on the whole, quite impressed with the fit. Now, there are some bits to be aware of, especially on this top section, so let me just zoom in. Hopefully you can see some of those raised details along this edge are like hooks for the cargo doors. So there's a lot of flash, and there is quite a bit of flash on this kit around small details. So going into those and cleaning them up as best as possible without snapping one of these hooks. See, this one, I don't think I've snapped that, but it looks slightly bent up to me. So I'll have to watch out for that one. Whether or not these hooks are going to take much punishment from the door opening and closing, I somehow doubt that. So might have to be very careful, or a lot of test fitting to make sure that they open and close cleanly without too much scraping and catching on things, which obviously might cause the stress on these hooks enough to snap them. So that's a little bit of a concern. Also, of course, when you put loads of primer and paint on these things, it's just going to make those joints even tighter. So yeah, that's something to bear in mind. Now, in the last clip, I screwed up immediately. As it turns out, these 4 tabs on the back of the wing are for the flaps, the mounting points for the flaps to go on, although it's not clear in the instructions. So there I was, cleaning away happily, thinking nothing to worry about, because up in this section here it makes no mention of it. Then when you go down to here, it starts talking about putting the landing gear on. There's your little tabs. So yeah, it meant finding the bit I'd cut off and gluing it back on with I used Tamiya extra thin to try and create a weld to make a tough joint, and I glued it on. I left it for quite a long time. Then I added another layer of glue. So I'm just going to clean that up a little bit more. But it looks okay. Whether it will take the strain of the flap, I'm not sure, and whether it will mean I can't move that flap for risk of knocking that tab off. We don't know. I don't know yet. So yeah, don't do that. Yeah, I know. I realise the irony of all this. But there you go. Oh, also, I didn't really talk much about this kit. I will put a link up or something, some information at the start maybe. But this isn't an expensive kit by any means. It's more expensive than the Revell stuff. Tamiya do a shuttle. I'm not sure about the scales. I'm not sure if they do a 1/144 one or not. It might be slightly smaller, I think. And I'm sure that's probably amazing. But this one, this is like £35, this kit. So it's pretty good value for money. It feels like a slightly old design based on the amount of flash on the mould, but not so old that it doesn't fit. I mean, obviously there's no glue on this, and it's all holding itself together pretty well. What else did I do? Oh, I used my sanding sticks and gave the bottom surface a bit of a going over, just to roughen it up a little bit, get rid of those scratches from when the parts are in the bags together. Unfortunately it's white, so you won't really see much of that. I also buffed the top surfaces, so obviously these are the clear parts, but I wanted the primer to have something to stick to. So again, a very light buffing with the these are the UMP sanding sticks, obviously available from eModels, and I used sanding sticks of varying sizes doing my cleanup work. As this is not a Bandai kit, obviously, and it's a traditional glue kit, it means that I will be obviously sanding and filling and whatnot where I have to. There doesn't seem to be too much wrong with this section as is, but of course when I start adding all the other panels to it, especially where the nose cone meets, I might need to do some filling there. And speaking of which, I also started looking at the cockpit pieces because there was a lot of flash on this. So getting these two to fit together nicely was quite tricky. But it's just trial and error, putting them together, seeing where it doesn't close up properly, and then rinse and repeat until you get, hopefully, something like this. Now, because we've got a clear part and a solid piece, it's difficult to see exactly how good the seam line is. So again, the final kind of finishing work will, it'd be more apparent what's needed when the first layer of primer's on. So yeah, I've rubbed this down as well. There's no way I was going to keep this clear. I don't think it's going to be removable because of the way the nose cone kind of fits in here, unless I can glue the nose cone onto this and maybe lift out the hot panel. It depends if there's a lip around here on the inside or not, I guess. We'll see. It might be possible still. But there is this hole on the bottom, and it says just a fillet, so I'm not sure what that would be for. But obviously not for this particular version of the kit. So yeah, more of the same really. I'm just going to carry on. These are the fins from the rear wing. So you've got a solid bottom part and a clear top part. So these are what go into the rear of these fins. Sorry, the wings here, which you can't see. So they go in position like that. Now, I don't need a working model, so once I've decided, I might just put them in position, the flaps, in whatever position I want, probably down, if I'm going for the coming into land thing, and then just leave them, because like I say, it's not a toy, it's not designed to be played with. I'm just going to choose a position and fix them like that, I think, just to negate the risk. Because of course you start moving things when they've got paint on, and no matter how good your varnish is, if it's a tight fit, it's just going to rip all that paint and primer off. Next up, I've got the rear engine bulkhead, the dorsal fin, which again has got a clear half. I mean, this would be great if you're really into, you know, the insides of wings. There's not a lot to show off. That's why I don't really get it. Cockpit, obviously. Now there's other clear pieces. I just show off interior engine detail, which is that. So again, I'm not too fussed about missing that. And then engine bells, which mercifully came as one cast piece. So all I've got to do is clean up the nubs. But obviously no seam line down the centre of it, which is nice. All one piece. So yeah, 3 of those, and then 2 medium size, and then 2 tiny ones to go in here. And they are tiny. They're literally 2 of those. Look at that. Oh, can't even. There it is. So that's the smallest one. So yes, carrying on, cleaning up parts and test fitting. Right, so the majority of this is all glued together now, using a mixture of the normal Tamiya cement and Tamiya extra thin. Obviously on the larger panels I put some of the cement on the inside, because the extra thin would just evaporate by the time I've gone around the whole edge. And then after that I'd put some extra thin in around the edge and then clamped it all closed. So the good news is the flaps kind of work. Not perfect. The other side, it was fine until it came off, the flap that is, so I tried to get it back on and it snapped that one again. So whilst I'm handling it and stuff, I've repaired it and I've just kept it taped up for now. The inside parts aren't glued. Basically, it's really hard to kind of line it all up because there aren't any definitive tabs and pins in the important areas, like the back wall kind of just sits in there roughly. But you've got so much stuff that is dependent on it all being a good fit. I did it that way around, along with this rear piece, making sure that as I was going, everything was lining up properly and everything will go together. So yeah, I need to probably take these bits out and then glue them in properly, but I was kind of thinking maybe I'd paint those separately. I don't know, I'm not really sure what's happening with the insides. I imagine it'll be quite clinical and clean because it's the inside of it, but I don't know, because obviously it's the cargo hold still. It's just the cargo is many millions and millions of pounds worth of equipment. But anyway, now I've also started filling the holes. Remember in the last segment I showed you the hole at the front here. Now what this is, this particular model is, or was at some point available with the 747. So it must have been the Enterprise at that point, because you've got holes on the underside. And some parts, including this brace here, which you could imagine would go on top of the 747, and then those plugs go into the shuttle, and other bits and bobs which I don't really know what they're for. So I'm assuming they're all something to do with a variant. So how I filled them was I just put some EL tape, it's like silver foil but on a sticky back. It's great for light locking, but it has so many uses, it's brilliant, and I'm probably going to use it on this elsewhere, but I'll keep that as a surprise. So yeah, so I'll put that on the inside just to stop the filler from, spreading out on the inside. And then I've used this Vallejo plastic putty, available from eModels.co.uk. It's got a very good fine nozzle, and and it dries pretty quick. So you will need to do a couple of coats because it will sink like most fillers will. So I've done one coat. It's not quite dry enough to sand yet, so I'll sand that back soon and then see if I need to put a bit more in just to top it off. So that's the front end, and then the same at the rear. These two don't go all the way through, they're just in the surface of the plastic, but the bigger ones at the back do go all the way through. So again, I've just put some tape in there. Ideally you want to put something solid, so if you've got a bit of plastic card, you probably want to glue something like that in there. Just remember to do it before you go putting it all together and gluing this on, and then you can't get to it anymore. Generally speaking, the fit is pretty good, so I have done a little bit of cleanup around here, and these bits have only been glued on recently, so I need to do a little bit more filing just to clean up that so it's nice and flat across there. You can see now the effect you're supposed to have, these clear covers over the I don't know, the fuel tanks or whatever for the engines and the smaller secondary and tertiary engines, shall we say? Or they're probably just RCS thrusters, or there's something anyway. So yeah, you can see how it's supposed to work, but as long as I get a good looking shuttle out of it, I'll be most happy. And yeah, so in terms of fit and finish so far, very nice. Like I say though, the difficulty is going to, when this is going on here, how's that going to line up? How are those seams going to be? Just test fitting it like this, it actually looks pretty good. There will be a line, but obviously we can clean that up as best as we can. Some filler if necessary. But the bottom's going to be dark, so obviously a line like that won't be as apparent as it is on white. So yeah, so that's that. Then we've got the dorsal fin that can actually be pressed in and out. It doesn't have to be glued because it's pretty solid in there. You have the flap in the rear section. It doesn't seem to want to turn though, and so that just kind of sits in there. I don't need it to turn. So yeah, it's starting to look pretty good now. What else have I been doing? So I've got all of these little parts to do still, clean up and sort of cut the nubs off. So I've got landing gear, pilot's chairs and control sticks with some terrible flash on those sticks. Those are the gear bay doors, nose gear, and the engine bells, the smaller ones anyway. And there's actually 4 of those tiny ones, yet 2 of them have got little notches cut out of them, even though the instructions says they're all supposed to be the same. So that's a bit odd. On the instructions, there are a few bits of information missing. So here we go. So is it on the nose gear? No, it's on the main gear. So on the main gear here, you can see you've got this little piece here, which when I first saw it, I thought it was, you know, one of those things you got to cut off from, you know, extra bits of moulding, but it's not. It's a separate piece that needs to be glued onto that one. But of course, then you got no number for it. I think there's something else missing as well, but I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. But yeah, that should have a part number, and there's definitely something else missing as well, which I might remember at some point when it's not relevant. So you might have seen on here. So this is just to help me keep track of what parts are what. So once I've cut them off the sprue, I've got a load of pieces that I could potentially mix up, especially after I've primed them. So on an area where I wouldn't prime, like on the inside, I've colour coded the pieces, so of course they match with the drawing. Oh, and these little tubs, by the way, they're brilliant. It was dead cheap from like a craft store. It comes in this box, so there's quite a few of them. But they're all individually little pots with a lid. So they're great for tiny little parts and keeping track of things and keeping them free of dust as well. So that's all good. So I'm going to carry on cleaning up parts. So I'm ready to start priming. And all of that good stuff is going to be in the next video. So priming and probably painting the cockpit, maybe doing something with the engines. We'll see, but yeah. But you don't have to sit through any more of this. I'm I'm pretty good with where I'm going. I think I've got enough certainly to be going on before I've got to make any decisions. I'm hopeful that this whole removable thing idea will work. Means I've got to kind of paint the inside of it as well, because you do see through it. But we'll see. The cockpit, there are no pilot figures. I didn't realise this, but yeah, worth mentioning. So if you can see in the cockpit and it is coming into land, it's going to be on autopilot. So yeah. So I've still got the doors to worry about and sort out, but the main concern was getting all this to line up and fit, and not be too gappy. And yeah, it's turning out pretty well so far. Right, so I've got a lot to be getting on with, so I'm going to bring this episode to a close, and thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I know it's not been terribly exciting because we haven't got to the good stuff yet. But I hope I've given you an insight into this kit itself, what's involved in it, what you've got to do to make it look good. You've got a better idea of the options, especially with those clear pieces. That might be something that you're really into. You could always embellish those sections with, you know, bits of cable and little, you know, bits of plastic card, make up little things. I don't know, but yeah, it's certainly got potential. Me personally, I just want a really cool looking shuttle to be on display at the eModels factory, warehouse, business premises up in the north of the England. Yes, so without much ado, I shall say thank you very much again. Thanks to eModels themselves for supplying the kit and inviting me to be part of this whole thing. Do remember to go along to emodels.co.uk, where you will find pretty much anything you could possibly ask for. Do go along to the website, do go along to the Facebook page, look out for competitions and promotions. They're always giving something away these days. You've got Fox and Ted on the Monday night show, really cool show with lots of giveaways and just nonsense, and it's just great fun. And on the Facebook page they have competitions. Go and put your stuff in the gallery, and there's a monthly draw to see of the 5-star reviewed pieces, which is our favourite, or which is eModels' favourite of the month, and that one we won a prize too. So it's well worth going along and just having a look at the community and a great bunch of people. So until part 2, I'll just quickly run over the items used in this episode. Okay, so there is the Tamiya cement, the regular kind with the white label. More of your traditional polystyrene cement. Tamiya extra thin cement, which is the it's a plastic weld. It's quite smelly, but it's amazing stuff and well worth having as part of your arsenal. Vallejo plastic putty, or Vallejo, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Ted can tell me. Vallejo plastic putty. Tamiya masking tape in the dispenser, because that helps keep your edges nice and crisp and clean. A pair of Tamiya side cutters. Various Ultimate Modelling Products sanding sticks of varying gauges. Is that right? Gauges? Coarseness. grades, various grades. Some of that's EL tape. I think I got mine from eBay. I'm not sure if it's more of a electrician's stuff. I'm not sure if it's a. Maybe they'll get it in. Maybe if you email them, they'll get it in for you. So, and also a sharp blade. So this will, like I say, can get more interesting as we go on, and paints and things and I'm using. So all of this is available from eModels. If it's not, then something very similar will be, which is fine. It's not about the specific products, it's about how you use them, and not having to buy every type of masking solution. I've got 3. So yeah, thanks again for watching, and remember, if you've got any questions at all, if you want something but can't find it on the store, email them and I'm sure they'll be able to hook you up with something similar, if not exactly what you're looking for. It might just be out of stock and therefore not on the website. So again, until part 2, thanks again, take care, bye bye.